I remember that first profitable trade more clearly than I remember most birthdays, kid. Funny thing, isn't it? Life gives you milestones, graduations, first paychecks, first heartbreaks, but trading gives you moments that tattoo themselves onto your bones. And that first winning trade, the first time the market didn't just take from me but finally handed something back, well, that was the moment I felt like I'd stepped through an invisible doorway into a world I had only watched from the outside. Back then, I was still young, still raw, still more excitement than skill. The kind of kid who thought reading a few books and memorizing a handful of indicators meant he knew what he was doing. I'd sit in my small apartment with 2 cheap monitors and a desk that wobbled if I leaned on it too hard, staring at charts like they were ancient scriptures, believing the right combination of lines and candles would finally whisper their secrets to me. And then one morning, during those early days when the world seemed simpler and I still thought the market was something you could charm with enthusiasm, I placed a trade that felt different. Not smarter, not perfect, just different. I had studied the setup for days, watched the price coil, felt that quiet tension in the chart, like the market was taking a slow breath before deciding its direction. When I clicked buy, my hands were sweating so hard I almost slipped on the mouse. Nerves can make a man feel alive, but they can also make him feel like a fool who's 2 seconds away from disaster. And trust me, I'd felt that second feeling plenty of times. The market moved in my favor, just a little at first, like it was testing me, asking if I had the guts to hold. I watched the candles climb with a cautious hope I didn't dare admit out loud. But then came the moment every trader knows the surge. A clean, decisive push upward that made the screen glow a little brighter. Suddenly, I was up more than I'd ever been before. Not enough to brag about, not enough to retire on, but enough to make my heart pound a little too hard in my chest. That's when greed walked in, quiet as a shadow. "Let it run," it whispered. "You could double this, triple it. Don't sell now." At the same time, fear perched on the other side of my mind. "Take it," it hissed. "You've lost so many times. Don't blow this one. Grab the win before it disappears." 2 voices, 1 trade. And there I was, a kid sitting at a cheap desk, caught between 2 ancient forces that have ruined more traders than any strategy ever could. But something shifted that day. For once, I didn't act out of panic or pride. I took a breath, the kind you take when you're standing on the edge of something new, and I sold exactly where my plan told me to. When the order filled and I saw green in my account, real green, not hypothetical backtest green, not paper trading imaginary green, but real money I had earned by making a decision and sticking to it, something inside me changed. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the screen as if it had finally acknowledged me. Not accepted me, not welcomed me, just acknowledged I existed, and for a brief moment, agreed to reward the work I'd put in. But here's the part most people don't understand. The money wasn't the milestone. No, kid. The milestone was the control, the discipline, the choice to follow my plan when everything inside me wanted to do the opposite. Because that first profitable trade wasn't really about profit, it was about proof. Proof that I could do this. Proof that I wasn't just gambling. Proof that I could tame my own emotions long enough to execute a plan with clarity instead of chaos. I walked outside after that trade, and I swear the world looked different. The air tasted different. The city noise felt like it was humming in tune with the rhythm beating in my chest. I felt taller, sharper, more awake. It wasn't arrogance, it was ignition. The beginning of something. But as sweet as that moment was, life has a way of reminding you that the market is never done teaching, and sometimes the first victory doesn't prepare you for what comes next. Because barely a week later, I placed another trade, thinking I was invincible, thinking I had cracked some hidden code, thinking I had become the man the market would respect simply because of one tiny win. And naturally, the market did what it always does to young, overconfident traders. It humbled me, brutally, swiftly, without apology. And that second trade became one of the most painful losses of my early career. A loss that taught me my first win was not a graduation but merely an invitation. And it was in that harsh follow-up lesson that I began to understand that a first profitable trade is never the finish line. It's and it's the beginning of a long, winding road filled with victories that feel too small and losses that feel too big. A road that tests not your intelligence, but your resilience. And after that first loss following my first win, I remember sitting there in the dim glow of my cheap monitors, feeling the sting of disappointment settle into my chest like cold air in winter. And I realized that the market wasn't congratulating me for my first profitable trade, it was asking me what kind of trader I wanted to become. Most people think success comes from winning. But kid, let me tell you something. I wish someone had told me early on. Success comes from what you do after you win. Because winning makes you vulnerable, in a way losing never does. Losing humbles you, sharpens you, forces you to look at your flaws. But winning? Winning inflates you, blinds you, makes you believe you're in control of a beast that no one has ever controlled, not even for a second in the long and brutal history of the markets. So after that painful second trade, I sat there replaying everything, the confidence, the carelessness, the assumptions, and I learned one of the most important lessons in my career. A milestone is only meaningful if you build on it with discipline. I didn't quit. I didn't spiral. I didn't chase revenge trades. Instead, I made myself a promise. One I wrote in permanent marker on a yellow sticky note and stuck right above my monitor. Respect the market. Respect yourself. And from that moment on, every trade, win or lose, became part of a larger journey, not a single event. I studied harder. I watched price action with clearer eyes. I took fewer trades, but better ones. I stopped fantasizing about getting rich and started focusing on getting better, because that's the shift every real trader eventually makes, from chasing money to chasing mastery. Months passed, and slowly, almost quietly, the wins began to feel different. They weren't flukes anymore. They weren't emotional roller coasters. They were the natural outcome of process, patience, and presence. I began to understand that a profitable trade isn't about the green number on the screen. It's about the calm you feel while executing it. And I'll be honest with you, kid. It took years before I felt that calm consistently. Years of mistakes, years of self-reflection, years of breaking bad habits that were tied more to my personality than to any trading strategy. But that first profitable trade, that first spark, it stayed with me through all of it. It became the memory I returned to when the market tried to break me, when long losing streaks made me question everything, when fear tried to hollow out my confidence and greed tried to hijack my decisions. It reminded me why I started. It reminded me what it felt like to take a plan, execute it cleanly, and walk away stronger than I began. And as the years rolled on, through dot-com madness, through the fires of 2008, through the chaos and shockwaves of COVID, I realized something profound. That milestone wasn't just the beginning of my trading journey. It was the beginning of knowing myself. Markets change, technology changes, strategies come and go. But the man behind the trade? He's the constant. He's the variable. He's the risk and the reward. And once you understand that, really understand it, every trade becomes a conversation between who you are and who you're trying to become. So when people ask me why I still remember that first profitable trade so vividly, I tell them it wasn't the gain that mattered, it was the transformation. It was the moment a kid with shaky hands and cheap monitors took his first real step toward becoming a trader. And that step, that spark, that fragile but unforgettable victory is what carried me through decades of storms, setbacks, comebacks, and quiet, steady growth. Because in the end, every great trader has that moment burned into their bones, a single win that whispers, "You can do this," especially on the days when everything else tries to tell you that you can't. And that whisper, that memory, that milestone stays with you long after the money from that first win has faded into dooley.